The market was alive with sound and smell. Strange alien music mixed with the stink of smoke and roasted meat. Bright lights hung from steel poles, and traders shouted in dozens of tongues. But in one dark corner, hidden between stalls of blood and fire, a small cage sat on the ground. Inside was a girl. She was not a child, not fully grown either. Her skin pale with strange markings glowing faintly under the lamps. Her silver eyes wide with fear. A heavy chain locked her wrists and ankles. A tag hung on the bars, written in crude letters for meat. The crowd walked past her without care. Some laughed, some threw scraps of food into the cage, not as kindness but as cruelty, as if testing how the animal would beg. She pressed herself into the corner, trembling, her hair tangled, her lips dry. Every part of her body showed hunger and pain. No one saw her as a person, not until a human walked by. He was no hero, no soldier, just a tired janitor from the docks, his uniform stained with oil, his hands rough with years of cleaning and carrying. His name was Daniel. He had come to the market only to buy spare rations, but when his eyes landed on the cage, his steps slowed. Daniel felt a chill crawl down his back. He had seen cruelty before in this city, but this was different. This was a child sold like a piece of meat. His eyes met hers through the bars, and for one moment the chaos of the market faded. It was only her and him, her eyes begging, silently screaming, "Help me." A trader noticed Daniel staring and laughed. "You? Like the look of her human? She's for slaughter tomorrow, finest meat you'll ever taste." The alien's voice was sharp, filled with mockery. The crowd chuckled. Daniel did not laugh. His stomach twisted, his fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to look away, to keep walking. But his feet would not move. Something inside him refused to leave. He remembered nights when he himself had starved, when no one cared if he lived or died. The girl reached weakly for the bars, her fingers trembling, her voice a whisper, almost lost in the market noise. "Please," she said, the word broken, fragile, yet powerful enough to pierce Daniel's heart. The trader slammed a stick against the bars, making her flinch. "Quiet meat," he growled, then turned back to Daniel. "You want her? Pay the price, otherwise move on." Daniel's throat felt dry. He asked slowly, "How much?" The alien smirked, expecting no real answer. "More than a dock rat like you could ever afford. She's rare meat, worth every coin." The crowd jeered again, but Daniel didn't flinch. He kept his eyes on the girl, her ribs visible, her breath shallow, her soul hanging on the edge of death. His heart pounded. Logic screamed at him to walk away, yet his hands shook with anger. He could not. He would not. The girl's eyes glistened, a tear slipping down her cheek, and in that moment Daniel made a silent promise. He did not know how. He did not know what it would cost, but he would not leave her there to die. The trader leaned on the bars, smirking. "Come back tomorrow, human. You can watch her butchered fresh cuts, tender flesh. Maybe we'll even let you taste for free." The words made Daniel's stomach twist with disgust. He turned his gaze away from the sneering faces and looked back at the girl. She held onto the bars as if they were the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Her whisper came again, broken but desperate. "Don't leave me." The noise of the market returned, louder than before, drums, laughter, shouts. But for Daniel, the world had gone silent. There was only her voice echoing in his chest. His jaw tightened, his decision made. Tomorrow, she was set to die. Tonight he would find a way to save her, even if it cost him everything. The crowd moved on. The traders shouted. But Daniel remained standing before the cage, his shadow stretching across the dusty ground, and the girl's trembling eyes never left him, clinging to the only spark of hope she had seen in all her short, broken life. The night was restless, and Daniel could not sleep. The girl's eyes haunted him, those silver eyes trapped behind cold bars, whispering for help. Every time he closed his own eyes, he saw her trembling hands reaching through the cage. He lay on the thin mattress of his room near the docks, the ceiling leaking drops of water, the smell of rust and mold heavy in the air, his stomach empty because he had spent most of his credits already, yet none of that mattered now. He had made a decision. Morning came too fast. The market filled again with shouts and music. Smoke rose from fires, knives flashed as traders cut meat and hung it for display. Daniel pushed his way through the crowd, his heart beating hard, his throat dry. He had nothing close to what the alien demanded, but he had to try. The cage was still there, the girl still inside, her head leaning weakly against the bars. Her breath shallow, her eyes half closed. When she noticed him, a flicker of light returned. She whispered something, but her voice was too faint to hear over the noise. The same trader from yesterday leaned against the cage, his thick arms crossed, his face smug. "Ah, the human rat returns," he said loudly, drawing laughter from other traders. "Come to buy your dinner early?" Daniel ignored the laughter. He stepped closer, his voice steady though his hands trembled. "I want her." The crowd nearby burst into more mocking laughter. Someone shouted, "The janitor wants to save the meat." Another sneered, "Maybe. He'll marry her." And the noise grew louder. The trader grinned, enjoying the show. "You want her human? Then pay 20,000 credits," he said, a number so high it might as well have been the stars. Daniel froze. He had barely 200 left. His chest tightened, but he refused to step back. "I don't have that much," he said, "but I'll work for it. I'll give you everything I can, every day." The trader raised his eyebrows, then burst out laughing. "Work? You think your broom and mop are worth 20,000? You insult me." The crowd booed. Some threw pebbles at Daniel. One struck his shoulder, but he did not move. He clenched his fists and shouted louder, "Then take my tools, take my rations, take everything, just let her go." The trader's eyes glimmered with cruel amusement. He tapped the bars of the cage with a metal rod, making the girl flinch. "Why do you care, human? She is meat, nothing more. Her bones will be boiled, her flesh roasted. She was born for this. Why do you care?" Daniel's chest burned with anger. He stepped closer until his face was inches from the bars, his voice low but fierce. "Because she is alive. Because she is not meat. Because I will not stand by and watch her die." The market went quiet. For a moment, the laughter dying down, whispers spreading through the crowd. The trader narrowed his eyes, sensing a chance for entertainment. "Fine, human," he said slowly, his smile cruel. "If you want her so badly, we make a new deal. Give me your freedom. Work for me until your body breaks. I get a servant, you get the meat girl. Do we have a bargain?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some cheered at the idea. Others laughed louder. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew what it meant. He would be a slave in all but name. He would lose everything, maybe even his life. He looked at the girl, her hands, clinging weakly to the bars, her lips moving silently. "Don't." Her eyes begging him not to do this, but Daniel's choice was already made. He raised his chin, his voice firm. "Yes, I accept." The trader blinked, then threw back his head and laughed. "Mad human," he shouted to the crowd. "He trades his life for meat." The market erupted in noise. Cheers, laughter, mockery. But Daniel heard none of it. His eyes stayed on the girl. She was shaking her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. But for the first time, there was also hope. The trader unlocked the cage with a heavy key. The door creaked. "Open!" The girl stumbled forward, too weak to stand. Daniel caught her before she fell, his arms wrapping around her thin body. She was light, too light, like carrying a bundle of bones and air. The crowd shouted and laughed. The trader slammed a contract chip onto Daniel's chest. "From this day you belong to me, janitor, but the meat is yours." Daniel didn't care. He held the girl close, whispering, "You're safe now. I won't let them take you." Her silver eyes looked up at him, wide and wet, her lips trembling. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Only a single tear slid down her face. The cage stood open. The crowd roared, but Daniel felt only silence. He had made his bargain, and now the true cost would come. Daniel walked out of the market with the girl leaning against him, her body so light it felt like carrying a ghost. The crowd behind them was still laughing, mocking, shouting words like fool and meat lover. But Daniel paid them no attention. His mind was heavy with what he had just done. He had traded his freedom, his life, for hers. The contract chip pressed against his chest was proof. Tomorrow he would report to the trader and work under his command, until his body broke. But tonight, at least, The girl was alive. The streets of the alien city stretched long and dark. Glowing signs flickered above broken doors. The smell of smoke and chemicals filled the air. Daniel guided her down a quiet alley where fewer eyes would follow. She stumbled often, her feet raw and blistered from chains. He slowed his pace, whispering, "Easy, you're safe with me." They reached his small room near the docks. The walls rusted metal, the floor stained. Hardly a place fit for rest, but it was all he had. Daniel set her gently on the mattress. She winced, curling into herself, her silver eyes still watching him with fear and confusion. He poured water from a dented flask and handed it to her. She stared at it as if unsure it was real, then raised it slowly to her lips, drinking in shaky gulps, the water spilling down her chin. Daniel handed her a piece of stale bread. She ate it as if every bite was precious. "Why?" she whispered, finally, her voice soft and broken. "Why did you do this?" Daniel sat down on the floor beside her, leaning his back against the wall, his voice low. "Because no one else would." Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. "They call me meat. They say I was born for slaughter. You gave everything." "For nothing." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at her fragile form, the marks of chains on her wrists, the scars across her thin arms. "You are not nothing," he said firmly. "You are alive, and that means you matter." For a long moment, silence filled the small room, only the sound of her quiet sobs. But the silence outside was not safe. Word had already spread across the city that a human had freed butcher's meat. Traders did not like losing profit, and the Alien Guild was cruel in punishing anyone who broke their order. Already whispers carried through the streets. Already guards searched alleys with sharp eyes. Daniel knew his choice had put him in danger, but when he looked at the girl, he also knew he would make the same choice again. Later that night, while she slept curled up like a frightened child, Daniel sat awake, his hands shaking. He remembered the trader's words, "Your freedom for hers," and the weight of it pressed down on him. His future was no longer his own. He was chained as surely as she once was. At dawn, the girl stirred. Her silver eyes opening, she tried to sit up but winced, her voice weak. "You will go to him today?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, the contract demands it." Her lips trembled. "Then I am the reason you are lost." Daniel shook his head. "No, you are the reason I am free. Maybe not in body, but here." He tapped his chest. "Here I chose, not them." Her eyes widened slightly, and for the first time she smiled, small and fragile, but real. When the sun rose higher, Daniel knew it was time. He could not run. The contract bound him. If he tried to hide, the Traders' Guild would send hunters, and worse, they might take the girl back. So he walked toward the market again, leaving her in the safety of his room. Though safety was never certain, every step felt like walking into a storm. The noise of the market rose around him as he arrived, the same trader waiting with a cruel grin. "You came, human," the alien said, tapping a heavy staff against the ground. "Good. Your chains. Begin today." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had no choice now. The trader shoved a pile of dirty tools into his arms. "You will clean the blood pits. You will scrub until your hands bleed. This is the price of your little rescue." Daniel nodded, taking the tools without a word, his mind already planning. He could endure pain. He could endure chains. But he would not let the girl be taken again. Back in the room, she sat waiting, staring at the door, praying silently that he would return. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every shadow made her fear the traitor had come. But when Daniel finally walked back in, covered in dirt and sweat, she rushed to him. "You came back," she whispered as if she had doubted. He smiled faintly, tired but unbroken. "I promised, didn't I?" She touched his hand gently, her own still trembling. "Then I will not leave you either." And in that moment, Daniel realized something. His sacrifice was not the end of freedom. It was the beginning of something else, something stronger, something worth more than his own life. The market roared with life as always, but for Daniel, the sound was only chains rattling in his mind. Day after day he worked in the blood pits, scrubbing floors slick with gore, hauling carcasses, swallowing the stink of death until his stomach turned. The traitor laughed at him, calling him meat lover, while others spat at his back. Yet, through all the filth and cruelty, Daniel carried one secret flame. Each night he returned to the girl. Each night she waited, weak but slowly healing, her voice growing stronger, her eyes less empty, her smile a little more real. But whispers spread quickly in the city, whispers that the human had stolen profit from the traitors, whispers that the alien guild would not let such defiance go unpunished. Daniel heard them, and so did she. The fear in her eyes told him what he already knew. They could not stay. That evening, as the city drowned in neon light, Daniel walked into the room, his clothes soaked with blood from another day's labor. The girl sat up sharply. "They came," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Men with guild marks, they asked about you. They asked about me." Daniel's heart pounded. The guild had discovered her. The walls of his small room were no longer a shield. He moved quickly, grabbing what little food and water he had, wrapping it in an old cloth. "We cannot stay," he said, his voice urgent. "We run tonight." Her hands trembled. "Run? Where?" "They control the city." Daniel knelt beside her, his eyes steady. "Then we hide in its shadows." When the streets grew darker, they slipped out, moving through alleys where flickering signs barely lit the ground. Daniel held her hand, tightly guiding her past patrols. The sound of boots clashing against steel echoed nearby. Torches burned bright. The guild guards searched with snarling dogs. They ducked behind a pile of rusted crates as voices passed. Daniel pressed a finger. To his lips, her silver eyes locked on his, her breath shaky. They stayed still until the guards moved on, then hurried deeper into the maze of alleys. The city seemed alive, every shadow a hunter, every sound a warning. Daniel's mind raced. He knew the guild's eyes were everywhere, but he also knew every hidden corner of the docks, every broken path others ignored. His years as a janitor had shown him secrets no guard cared to learn. They reached an old maintenance tunnel. The steel door rusted and half broken. Daniel forced it open with his shoulder, the noise loud, but no one came. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Pipes leaked drops of black water, the floor uneven with rubble. The girl shivered. "This place," she whispered. "It feels like a grave." Daniel squeezed her hand. Better a grave of stone than a cage of knives. They walked in silence, only the echo of their steps and the hiss of leaking pipes filling the air. Behind them, the city still roared, but here it felt far away. Halfway through the tunnel, the sound of metal boots clanged above them, guards shouting orders. Daniel froze, pulling her into a dark alcove. He covered her mouth gently. She shook with fear, but stayed, quiet. The noise passed, fading slowly. When they moved again, her voice trembled. "Why do you do this? You gave up your freedom, now your life too." Daniel's eyes softened. "Because you remind me that life means more than chains. I cannot let them break you." Her eyes glistened, tears sliding down her cheeks. But she said nothing more. At last, they reached the far end of the tunnel, a broken ladder leading up to a metal grate. Daniel climbed first, his muscles burning from days of labor. He pushed the grate open just enough to look. Above was an empty street, dark and silent. He helped her climb up after him. The night air hit them, cool and sharp, the stars faint behind the city smoke. Daniel led her through another series of alleys, but a shout rose behind them. The grate they had lifted now open. Guild guards spotted movement. "Run!" Daniel hissed, pulling her with him. Their feet pounded against stone. Shouts grew louder, footsteps closing in. They turned corners, slipped between narrow passages, but the guards were fast, their torches throwing beams of light across the walls. Shadows stretched like claws reaching for them. The girl stumbled, falling to her knees. Daniel scooped her into his arms, running harder though his lungs burned. He could not stop. He would not stop. The sound of the guards chasing hammered in his ears. Finally, they burst into an abandoned district near the old docks. Half the buildings collapsed. The smell of salt and rust in the air. Daniel ducked into a warehouse with shattered windows, setting her down gently. The guards' voices echoed faintly but moved past, the darkness of the ruins hiding them for now. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. He looked at her. She was pale, exhausted but alive. "We cannot stay here long," he whispered. "But tonight we breathe." She reached for his hand, gripping it weakly, her silver eyes shimmering in the faint moonlight. "As long as you are with me, I will not fear." Daniel swallowed hard, looking out into the broken city. The guild would not stop. They would hunt them until one of them fell. But for now, in this fragile silence, he allowed himself one truth. He would die before letting her be caged again. The warehouse was cold and empty. Broken glass scattered across the floor. The roof half collapsed. The night wind whistled through gaps in the steel walls. Daniel laid the girl down on a piece of old cloth he found in the corner, her body trembling from exhaustion, her eyes heavy. She looked around, her voice weak but steady. "This place, is it safe?" Daniel crouched beside her, his rough hands adjusting the cloth so it covered her thin frame. "Safe enough for tonight," he said, his voice calm though his heart pounded. He knew the guild would search every district. He knew this ruin would not protect them forever, but for now it was all they had. The girl curled into the cloth, her silver eyes glistening in the faint moonlight coming through the broken windows. "I never thought I would breathe outside that cage," she whispered. "I thought death was waiting for me and no one would stop it." Daniel sat down against the wall, staring at the shattered door, always listening for footsteps. "Sometimes death waits, but sometimes someone stands in front of it," he replied. Her gaze lingered on him, fragile but filled with something new. Not just fear, but trust. "Why you?" she asked softly. "Why did you stand for me?" Daniel closed his eyes, memories rising like smoke. He remembered being young, hungry, and alone. He remembered begging for bread and hearing only laughter. He remembered nights when he wished someone, anyone, would care enough to help. "Because I know what it is to be forgotten," he said, his voice low, "and I promised myself I would never forget another." The girl swallowed hard, her lips trembling. She wiped her eyes with a dirty hand. "Then I will remember you, even if the galaxy does not." Silence stretched between them, not empty, but heavy with meaning. As the night deepened, Daniel searched the warehouse, finding a few rusted barrels, scraps of cloth, and pieces of wood. He gathered them together, striking a spark with an old tool until a small fire flickered. The light spread across the ruined walls, casting long shadows. The girl watched the fire with wide eyes, her face softening. "It feels warm," she whispered, as if she had forgotten warmth existed. Daniel nodded. "Fire means life. As long as it burns, we fight." She leaned closer to the fire, stretching her thin hands toward it, the orange glow reflected in her silver eyes. For the first time, her face looked less haunted, more alive. But the peace was fragile. Outside, the sound of boots echoed faintly, patrols moving closer. Daniel's body tensed, his hand tightening around the rusted pipe he had picked up for defense. The girl noticed his change and whispered, "They are hunting still." Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "They won't stop until they have us. But we stay ahead. We keep moving." Her voice shook. "You could leave me, and they would stop hunting. You." His eyes hardened, he shook his head. "I will never leave you, not to them." She stared at him, stunned, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came, only tears sliding down her cheeks. Tears not of fear, but of something new. Hope. The night dragged on. The fire burned low. Daniel forced himself to stay awake, his back against the wall. The girl finally drifted into sleep, her breathing steady, her face calmer than he had ever seen it. He watched her for a long time, the firelight dancing across her features, and something inside him shifted. It was no longer just about saving her from the cage, it was about giving her a life beyond fear. As dawn touched the sky with pale light, Daniel shook her gently awake. "We have to move," he whispered. "The ruins won't hide us forever." She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, her body still weak but stronger than before. Where will we go? Daniel looked out at the broken docks, ships rising in the distance, guild banners fluttering across the city. Away from here, to a place where they cannot treat you as less than alive. Her silver eyes widened. Such a place exists? Daniel hesitated, then gave a faint smile. If it doesn't, then we will make it. She stared at him, her breath catching, then nodded. Then I will follow you. The fire died out, leaving only smoke. Daniel picked up the small bundle of food, then offered his hand. She took it, her grip fragile but certain. Together they stepped out of the ruins, the city waking around them, danger waiting at every turn. But for the first time, the girl did not walk as a prisoner. She walked as someone who had hope, and Daniel, though chained by his bargain, felt freer than he had in years. The city did not forgive. The guild did not forget. By morning, the posters were already on the walls, crude drawings of a human man with a scar on his jaw and a young alien girl with silver eyes. The words below read, "Wanted, traitors to the guild." Daniel tore one poster down as they passed, but the message was clear. They were no longer just runaways, they were targets. Everywhere they went, eyes followed, merchants whispering, guards sniffing the air like hounds. Daniel kept his hood low. The girl stayed close to his side, her thin fingers gripping his sleeve. They moved through the lower districts where smoke hung thick and the air stank of oil. Daniel knew shortcuts, back alleys, and tunnels forgotten by most. Yet no matter where they turned, danger waited. By noon, a group of guild enforcers blocked. The street ahead, their armor heavy, their weapons sharp. One pointed at Daniel. "There, the human rat." Daniel's heart slammed. "Run," he hissed to the girl. Grabbing her hand, they darted down a side path. Boots thundered behind them, the enforcers shouting. They weaved through narrow alleys, over broken fences. The girl stumbling, but Daniel never letting her fall. Their breaths ragged. The chase, endless. At last they burst into an abandoned shipyard, rusting hulls towering like skeletons. Daniel pulled her behind a giant beam, pressing his back against the metal, his chest heaving, the sound of footsteps closing in. The girl's eyes wide with terror, she whispered, "They will catch us." Daniel's jaw tightened, sweat dripping down his face. "Not while I breathe." He grabbed a rusted pipe, his only weapon. As shadows stretched across the ground, the enforcers spread out, their voices sharp. "Find them! The guild wants the girl alive. The man can rot." Daniel held his breath, waiting. One enforcer passed near, his boots scraping metal. Daniel lunged, striking with the pipe. The guard fell with a grunt. The girl gasped, but Daniel grabbed her. "Hand, move." They ran deeper into the yard, the alarm now loud, enforcers shouting, more boots clanging on steel. Daniel's mind raced, every turn seemed blocked, every escape cut off, yet he refused to stop, he would not give her back. At last they found a broken maintenance lift. Daniel shoved her inside, then pulled the lever. The lift groaned, creaking, upward, sparks flying. Below them, guards swarmed, their shouts echoing. The lift reached the top. Daniel yanked her out. The roof of the yard stretched wide, open to the night sky, the stars faint through the smog. The girl stumbled, panting. "We cannot keep running forever." Daniel looked at her, his breath ragged, his eyes hard. "Then we stop running and we fight." Her silver eyes widened, trembling. "Fight them. They are many. You are one." He gave a grim smile. "One is enough when one refuses to break." The enforcers climbed after them, their torches glowing, their armor clanking. Daniel pushed the girl behind a broken wall. "Stay low," he whispered, gripping the pipe tightly. The first guard rushed him. Daniel swung, the metal cracked against armor. Sparks flew, another came. Daniel ducked, striking again. Pain shot up his arms, but he did not fall. The girl watched, her body shaking, every strike echoing like thunder. Daniel fought not like a soldier, but like a man who had nothing left to lose. The guards cursed, shouting, "Kill the human, take the girl." But Daniel roared back, his voice raw. "Over my dead body." Blood dripped from his lip, his knuckles raw, yet each blow was fueled by something stronger than fear. At last the guards pulled back, regrouping, their leader sneering. "You cannot win, human. The guild owns. This city soon you will be nothing but bones." Daniel stood tall, bruised but unbroken, his chest rising with every harsh breath. I may be bones, but she will live, and that is enough. The enforcers hesitated, whispers spreading among them. This was no ordinary human. This was something else, something they feared. The girl crawled to his side, clutching his sleeve, her voice trembling. You are hurt? Daniel placed a shaking hand on her shoulder, his smile faint but steady. I am alive, and so are you. That's all that matters. The guards finally retreated, their leader spitting on the ground. This isn't over, human. The guild will burn you both. Then they vanished into the shadows, leaving only silence. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his body shaking. The girl wrapped her arms around him, whispering through tears, You fought the world for me. Daniel leaned against her, his voice barely a breath. And I'll keep fighting until you're free. Above them, the stars flickered faintly, as if listening, as if remembering. The night was almost silent after the battle in the shipyard. Only the faint hum of broken machines and the soft sound of the girl's breath filled the air. Daniel leaned against the cold wall, his body bruised, blood running from cuts on his arms, yet his eyes still burned with fire. The girl stayed close, her silver eyes wet with tears, her hands gripping his sleeve as if afraid he would vanish. You cannot fight them all, she whispered, her voice shaking. The guild will send more, stronger. They will never stop. Daniel met her gaze, his voice hoarse but steady. Then neither will I. But deep inside he knew the truth. They could not survive forever in the city. Every alley, every shadow, now belonged to the guild. Sooner or later they would be cornered, and then his strength would not be enough. When the first light of dawn touched the sky, painting it gray and pale, Daniel made his choice. We leave the city, he said, his words heavy. There are human enclaves beyond the border, hidden, free from the guild's chains. If we reach them, you will be safe. Her eyes widened with hope and fear. But the border is guarded. No one crosses alive. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and gentle. We will. They moved before the sun rose higher, slipping through ruins and silent streets, the city waking around them with shouts and clattering markets. But Daniel kept to forgotten paths, guiding her toward the outer gates. As they approached the wall that separated the city from the barren lands beyond, the air grew colder. Patrols thickened. Banners of the guild flapped in the wind. Daniel's heart pounded, every step heavier than the last. At the gate, guards stood with weapons, scanning every face. Daniel pulled his hood lower, whispering to the girl, Stay close, do not look up. They joined a group of workers passing through, carrying crates and tools. But just as they neared the checkpoint, a voice shouted, There, the human, stop him. Daniel's blood ran, cold. The guards raised their weapons. Chaos erupted. Workers scattered. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand and sprinted toward the gate. Shouts and alarms filled the air. Arrows flew past, metal clashed. He slammed into one guard, knocking him aside. The girl stumbled, but he pulled her forward, his body burning with desperation. The gate loomed closer, the sunlight beyond it golden and free. Another guard blocked their way, blade raised. Daniel swung the rusted pipe with all his strength. The clash rang loud, sparks flew. The guard fell, but Daniel staggered, pain ripping through his side. The girl cried out, Daniel, her voice breaking. He forced a smile, though his knees trembled. Keep running, he gasped, don't stop. Together they burst through the gate. Beyond the walls stretched a wide, barren land, dry soil cracking under the sun. Endless but open. Daniel felt the weight of chains fall away, if only for a moment. Behind them, the city roared with fury, horns blaring. But Daniel did not look back. His eyes stayed forward, guiding her across the wasteland, each step heavy, each breath sharp. Hours passed, the sun rising high, the land endless. Daniel's body weakened, his wounds bleeding, but the girl supported him, her voice steady though tears streamed down her face. Don't give up, please. You gave me life. Now I will give you mine if I must. He looked at her, her silver eyes shining like mirrors of the sky, his voice soft. No, you will live. That is the promise. At last, when the sun began to sink, shapes appeared on the horizon, hidden, structures rising from the earth, human banners waving faintly. Daniel's heart leapt. "The Enclave," he whispered, his voice breaking. Guards in simple armor rushed forward, their eyes wide with shock. "A human and an alien girl," they murmured, but Daniel collapsed before them, the girl crying out as she held him. "Please," she begged, her voice raw. "He saved me. He gave everything. Help him." The humans lifted Daniel, carrying him inside, the Enclave alive with firelight and voices. No cages, no chains. Only people looking with both fear and wonder. The girl sat beside Daniel as healers worked, her hand gripping his tightly, refusing to let go. When his eyes opened faintly, she whispered, "You didn't just save me, you changed me. You showed me I am more than what they said. You showed me hope." Daniel smiled weakly, his voice little more than breath. "Then it was worth everything." Tears fell from her eyes onto his hand. "And I will never forget. Never." Outside, the city still hunted, the guild still ruled. But in this hidden place, a seed had been planted. One act of mercy, one human's defiance. And from it might grow something greater than either of them could imagine. As night fell, the girl whispered softly, her voice carrying into the silence. "This is not the end, Daniel. This is the beginning." And for the first time the stars above seemed brighter, shining down on them like a promise of a new dawn.